There are moments in history when the world feels like it's leaning forward, not waiting for war, not waiting for peace, but waiting for a choice. Right now, the relationship between the United States and Iran is balanced on that edge. In Iran's streets, anger and fear exist side by side. In Washington, the language is quieter, briefings, intelligent summaries, closed-door debates, and no speeches, no declarations, just a simple, dangerous question hanging in the air. If America intervenes, what does that actually mean? Why Iran is different? Iran is not just another crisis. It is not isolated. It is not weak. And it is not simple. Iran sits at the heart of the Middle East. Geographically, politically, and ideologically, it influences militias in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. It has learned how to fight without fighting directly. And perhaps most importantly, it has survived decades of pressure. Sanctions, isolation, assassinations, cyber attacks. This is a state that has learned how to absorb pain. That reality shapes every option America considers. The first door, diplomacy that barely works. Every American administration begins in the same place. Diplomacy, not because trust exists. It doesn't, but because diplomacy is the only tool that slows escalation instead of accelerating it. Quiet talks, indirect messages, third-party intermediaries. The goal is rarely friendship, it's containment, contain nuclear development, contain regional violence, contain the risk of war. But diplomacy depends on something fragile, restraint. And when violence rises inside Iran, diplomacy becomes politically toxic in Washington. Images of repression emerge, negotiations don't just stall, they collapse. At that point, diplomacy stops being a solution and becomes a delayed tactic. Sanctions, pressure without precision. Sanctions are America's most used weapon against Iran. They don't explode, they don't make noise, but they grind. By targeting oil exports, banking systems, shipping networks, and foreign investment, Washington aims to suffocate the regime financially. The logic is simple. No money means no repression. But reality is harsher. Sanctions weaken government slowly, and civilians immediately. They create shortages, inflation, unemployment. They can fuel anger against the regime, or redirect that anger toward the outside world. Sanctions don't topple regimes by themselves. They only prepare the ground. For the war you don't see, cyber and information operations, some of the most aggressive forms of intervention happen silently. Cyber operations allow the U.S. to disrupt Iran's internal systems, communications, surveillance networks, command chains, without crossing borders. No troops, no airstrikes, just disruption. At the same time, information warfare aims to bypass censorship, counter propaganda, and reach people directly. In theory, this empowers civilians. In practice, it's unpredictable. Disabling systems can protect protesters or endanger hospitals. Restoring internet access can expose activists to surveillance. Cyber intervention offers power without visibility, and that makes it tempting. And dangerous. Limited strikes, controlled violence. If America uses force, it doesn't have to mean invasion. The most discussed military option is targeted strikes, not against cities, not against civilians, but against the machinery of repression. Internal security units, command centers, missile and drone facilities, nuclear-linked infrastructure. These strikes are designed to punish, not conquer. To weaken control, to shift calculations. But there's a problem with limited strikes. History. They rarely stay limited. Retaliation follows. Allies get pulled in. What begins as control can turn into momentum. And momentum is hard to stop once it starts. Oil. Hitting the regime's lifeline. Iran survives on oil. Despite sanctions, it exports millions of barrels a day. That money funds the state, the security forces, and regional influence. Targeting oil infrastructure would hit the regime where it hurts most. Revenue, ports to refineries, export terminals. These are visible, vulnerable, and economically devastating targets, but oil is global. Any disruption would ripple across the world, raising prices, destabilizing markets, hurting economies far from the Middle East. It's a weapon that punishes Iran and the world at the same time. The hard truth about regime change is often spoken about quietly, but rarely planned honestly. Removing a government is not the same as building a future. Iran is not a blank slate. It has institutions, factions, rival power centers. A collapse could lead to chaos, civil conflict, to years of instability. History offers warnings here, not guarantees. And those warnings weigh heavily on decision-makers who understand that removing a regime is often easier than living with what comes after. Iran's answer. Why escalation is never one-sided. Iran would not absorb intervention passively. Retains missile capabilities, proxy forces across the region, the ability to disrupt shipping lanes and target U.S. interests indirectly. That retaliation wouldn't necessarily be immediate or obvious. It would be asymmetric but calculated, designed to stretch America's attention and alliances. Every move invites a counter-move. That's the trap. The United States doesn't lack options when it comes to Iran. It lacks certainty. Every path carries cost. Every decision reshapes lives far beyond policy papers. Intervention could weaken a regime or harden it. Restraint could preserve peace or allow repression to deepen. For the Iranian people, the outcome is deeply personal. For Washington, it's strategic, and somewhere between those two realities lies a decision that will echo for years. History will not ask what America chose. It will ask why.